Kale's blaster sparked again, shooting a thin streak of blue light that hissed and fizzled against the metallic wall, leaving a faint burn mark that smelled faintly of fried electronics. He swore under his breath, tossing the weapon aside like a petulant child. "Of course it jams now," he muttered, hopping over a chunk of debris that might once have been part of a ceiling panel. Somewhere in the distance, a drone whirred, its sensors scanning for life or maybe just trying to be annoying. Kale wasn't sure which was worse. His boots squeaked on the slippery metal floor of the abandoned mining facility, echoing in a cavernous hallway that smelled faintly of burnt oil and disappointment. He paused to catch his breath, leaning against a support beam that groaned ominously under his weight. "Why did I volunteer for this mission?" he said aloud, knowing no one was around to answer except for the flickering lights that mocked him with their irregular blinks. His communicator crackled. "Kale, Kale, are you there?" The voice was tinny and distant. He gritted his teeth. "Not now, Joran, I'm busy being dramatic and possibly dying." He tapped the communicator with a finger. "And yes, that is an actual priority." The corridor ahead was littered with the skeletons of robots and half-melted containers of unknown chemicals. Kale edged forward, trying to ignore the ominous hum of the facility's old power core, which sounded suspiciously like it was preparing to explode. "Well," he said, brushing a layer of dust from a console, "if I don't make it, tell my mother, she'll probably just sigh and say, 'I told you so.'" A low chuckle escaped him, which was quickly swallowed by a sudden metallic clang that bounced down the hallway. He jumped, kicking a small, spherical drone that had been quietly rolling behind him. It burst into sparks. "Victory!" he exclaimed, arms raised, then immediately realized that celebrating before confirming survival might be unwise. Then she appeared. Kale froze mid-step, staring at a figure that seemed to materialize from the shadows. She was tall and impossibly elegant, with skin that caught the dim light like polished copper and eyes that glimmered with a predatory curiosity. Her ears were long and tapered, arching in a way that was both alien and mesmerizing, twitching slightly as if testing the air for secrets. Kale's first thought was that she was a hologram, some highly sophisticated enemy defense, but there was no distortion, no flicker, just her, standing there, arms crossed and an eyebrow raised. "Really?" she said, her voice smooth and rich with a hint of amusement. "You're fighting that?" Kale glanced at the smoking drone at his feet. It was getting aggressive," he said, trying to sound confident. His blaster, still sparking, rolled under his foot, prompting another muttered expletive. "Okay, maybe it wasn't aggressive, but technically self-defense." She didn't move, didn't attack. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him with those strange, luminous eyes. "You are very persistent," she said finally, almost like it was a compliment. Kale scratched the back of his neck. "Yeah, that's me. Persistent and mostly harmless. Usually." He tried a grin, which probably looked more like a grimace, and immediately regretted it when his elbow knocked over a container of loose metal screws. They clattered to the floor. "Mostly harmless," he repeated, pointing at the mess, as if that explained everything. The alien vampire woman, for all her terrifying presence, seemed unfazed. She moved with a grace that made Kale's flailing attempts at dodging hazards look like slapstick theater. She didn't draw a weapon, didn't advance, and somehow that was even more unnerving than a direct attack. "You're funny," she said, voice dipping into a tone that might have been amusement or mockery. Kale swallowed, uncertain which. "I try," he said, "mostly at my own expense." He ducked a falling pipe, narrowly avoiding an impact that would have left him bruised and very embarrassed. Kale backed up, trying to regain some dignity. "Listen, I don't know what you are, okay? Could be a holographic AI, could be literally anything. But I just want you to know, if you're here to kill me, I can promise you I'll be entertaining." He gave a lopsided salute which mostly resulted in him stumbling over his own foot. She blinked slowly, an almost imperceptible smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You are chaotic," she said, "and very amusing." Kale paused, blinking. Amusing? He hadn't been called that since he got his first blaster license and accidentally set his dorm room on fire. Amusing's not usually a life-saving trait. She took a step closer, moving with the silent elegance of a shadow sliding across the floor. Kale instinctively raised his hands, though he wasn't sure in what kind of surrender pose. Relax, she said, and for the first time Kale noticed the subtle twitch of her ears, the way they seemed to catch every tiny vibration. I am not going to kill you, not yet. Kale's jaw dropped. Wait, not yet. She let out a soft laugh, almost musical, almost terrifying, that made Kale flinch. I am curious, she said simply. You fight with enthusiasm, and you survive by accident mostly. That is rare. Kale swallowed, trying to process that he wasn't about to be torn apart, at least immediately. Thanks, I think. He glanced at his blaster, still smoking. Also, if I survive this, you might want to consider a warning label on your appearance. You know, something like very likely to cause heart palpitations and existential panic in humans. She tilted her head again, the long ears twitching like twin radar dishes. Perhaps, she said, but that would spoil the fun. Kale groaned. Right, fun, that's what surviving near-death encounters is called in alien vocabulary, apparently. He rubbed his temple. Okay, so, are you going to kill me now or just watch? Watch, she said, it is more entertaining. And with that, Kale realized something important. If he survived this, he would have stories to tell, stories that no one would believe, about a terrifying, beautiful alien vampire woman who thought his clumsiness was charming, who had the power to end him with a flick of her wrist, and yet, inexplicably, had decided to let him live. Somehow, despite the danger, despite the plasma pits, the rogue drones, and his own tendency to trip over everything, Kale felt the faintest spark of relief and the oddest hint of hope. Okay, he muttered to himself, picking up the blaster and ignoring its sparks. Let's see how much trouble I can get into before she changes her mind. Kale stumbled over another pile of scrap metal, cursing as sparks flew from his boots. Seriously, he muttered, brushing dust off his sleeve. This facility is like a death trap designed by sadistic engineers with a sense of humor. He glanced over at Solera, who was perched on a raised beam with her long ears twitching, watching him like a cat observing a particularly idiotic mouse. You know, he said, if you wanted to impress me with your agility, you could have just thrown a laser at me and skipped the commentary. She tilted her head, the faintest smirk on her lips. Your commentary is part of the entertainment, she said, her voice smooth and teasing. You humans are remarkably loud for something so fragile. Kale groaned, fragile, huh? I'll have you know I survived 3 plasma storms, 2 malfunctioning drones, and oh, don't even get me started on the cafeteria food back on Earth. That stuff is hazardous. He waved his arms dramatically, almost knocking over another precariously stacked pile of crates. Solera sighed, a soft, melodic sound that made Kale pause. I do not envy your species' definition of danger, she said. But your resilience is intriguing. He squinted at her. Intriguing, huh? That's alien for I'm going to eat you if you're boring, isn't it? She let out a small laugh, a musical ripple that made Kale jump. No, I am curious, she said. Curiosity is more enjoyable than immediate satisfaction. Kale blinked, trying to parse that, and then shrugged. Right, curiosity, that explains why you're not just a laser-eyed death machine yet. The facility stretched endlessly, a labyrinth of broken machinery, floating debris, and gravity anomalies that made Kale feel like he was walking through a funhouse designed by engineers with an evil streak. He stumbled along a tilted platform, muttering to himself about the physics of the situation. Gravity's supposed to go down, not sideways. Who designed this place? Someone with a grudge against humans, clearly. Solara glided past him effortlessly, her long ears angled as if scanning the air for something he couldn't perceive. It is an old mining station, she explained. Abandoned for decades. Security protocols are automatic, unpredictable, and sometimes comically excessive. Kale raised an eyebrow. Comically excessive? I don't know whether to laugh or cry here. He tried to leap over a gap between platforms, misjudged, and caught himself by grabbing a dangling cable, spinning dangerously. Okay, laughing might be safer, he muttered. Solera's eyes glinted in the dim light and she moved beside him in a blur, catching his arm and pulling him back with effortless strength. Careful, she said. You are reckless. Kale grinned sheepishly. Reckless? I prefer adaptively chaotic. Makes me sound cooler. They advanced deeper into the facility, encountering old security drones that had gone haywire over the decades. Kale tried to hack one with a portable interface, pressing buttons frantically. Okay, maybe if I just nope, wrong button, oh great, now it's shooting sparks at me. He ducked, rolling out of the way, and accidentally triggered a holographic map that flickered above the console. Solera arched an eyebrow. Your species' idea of technology is delightfully unpredictable. Kale groaned, rubbing his face. Delightfully unpredictable is one way to put it. Other ways include likely to explode in my hands or completely useless until it kills something accidentally. She let out a low hum which he interpreted as amusement. You are entertaining, she said again. Kale's ears went hot. Thanks, I think, not sure if that's a compliment or a warning. As they navigated a corridor filled with floating magnetic debris, Kale noticed Solera moving with uncanny precision, avoiding the obstacles as if she were part of the machinery itself. Do you ever get tired of this place? He asked, struggling to dodge a spinning shard of metal. I mean, it's all sparks, shadows, and death traps. I've seen less dangerous amusement parks. She gave a small smile. I do not tire, she said. It is a suitable test of your capabilities, and yours are surprisingly resilient. Kale groaned again, narrowly avoiding a laser grid that popped to life without warning. Capabilities? I call it luck and stubbornness. Solera's ears twitched and she hovered beside him as if weighing his words. You are human, she said simply, and that is fascinating. They entered a massive chamber where the remnants of the mercenary squad had set up a rudimentary camp. Kale peeked around a corner, whispering, Okay, they're armed, dangerous, and possibly insane. Any bright ideas, oh mysterious life form who's been watching me flail like a soap-drenched space monkey? Solera's eyes glinted and she flicked her hand. Shadows shifted and a few of the mercenaries vanished from view, leaving only confused murmurs. Follow my lead, she said, but do not fall again. Kale saluted, then promptly tripped over his own foot. Solera's lips twitched in a smile. You are predictably unpredictable, she said. It is delightful. Kale groaned, brushing himself off. Delightful, sure. That's one word for narrowly avoiding death while being evaluated by a centuries-old alien predator. They fought through the camp with a combination of Solera's calculated precision and Kale's chaotic improvisation. He managed to accidentally short-circuit one of their weapon systems by dropping a molten crate into it, prompting Solera to shoot him a look that was half amusement, half disbelief. Impressive in a catastrophic way, she commented. Kale grinned, wiping soot from his forehead. I aim to please or at least not die. After the skirmish, they found themselves on a narrow catwalk overlooking a massive void where mining debris floated like dead stars. Kale leaned over the railing, dizzy. You know, he said, I never thought I'd be alive long enough to appreciate a floating pile of radioactive junk. Solera crouched beside him, long ears twitching. You endure, she said. That is rare among humans. Most perish long before amusement becomes possible. Kale swallowed, trying to catch his breath. Endure, sure, that's me, the heroic human who trips into glory. He looked at her, noticing the faint gleam in her eyes. So, what now? You just watch me flail around some more, or do we team up? Solera gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. We cooperate. It will be informative. Kale grinned, clapping his hands together despite the exhaustion. Cooperate? I like the sound of that. Also, it's probably safer than improvising solo, which, let's face it, I excel at only when I survive. She tilted her head, long ears quivering. You are amusing, she repeated, voice soft, almost approving. Kale made a mock bow. Amusing, I'll take it, beats dead any day. As they moved through the facility, a rhythm developed, Solera's precise movements paired with Kale's unpredictable improvisation. Drones exploded in sparks, holographic consoles flared to life, and gravity anomalies flipped them upside down, yet somehow they advanced, surviving the chaos together. Kale muttered commentary at every misstep while Solera observed, occasionally offering a sharp correction or a sarcastic remark. The tension of survival was there, lurking, but humor, banter, and sheer absurdity eased it, making them a strange, effective duo. By the time they reached a central control room, Kale realized something odd. He wasn't terrified anymore. Well, not completely. The alien vampire woman beside him had chosen to watch, to teach, to tease, and somehow that made surviving the facility feel less like a desperate struggle and more like an absurd adventure. Okay, Kale said, stretching his arms and pretending to pose heroically. Next stop, total domination of the universe, or at least not dying in this blasted station. Solera's faint smile was all the answer he needed. Perhaps, she said, but first let us see if you can survive my next test. Kale clutched the edge of the narrow catwalk, swaying precariously above a churning plasma pit that glowed like liquid fire. He muttered a prayer to every deity he could think of, including a couple he invented on the spot while his boots squeaked against the metal grating. Okay, he said aloud, if this is how I die, let it be remembered that I went out looking heroic-ish. Mostly-ish. Solera perched on the opposite edge, long ears twitching, her eyes glinting like polished obsidian. Do not exaggerate your heroism, she said, voice calm, almost amused. Your survival is entertaining enough without theatrics. Kale swallowed hard. Right, entertaining, that's me, the human who trips into legend. He peered down at the swirling plasma below, estimating the distance, trying not to think about melting instantly. Seriously, could someone invent gravity that doesn't try to kill me every 5 seconds? Solera's smirk was subtle, but there, in the low light, Kale thought he caught a hint of genuine amusement. You adapt, she said. Even when luck is barely cooperating. Before he could respond, the remnants of the mercenary squad appeared at the far end of the catwalk, weapons raised. Kale froze. Oh, great. And here I thought surviving the mining station's automated hazards was enough for one day. Solera's gaze sharpened. Do not panic, she said. Follow my instructions exactly. Kale raised an eyebrow. Follow instructions. That's terrifying. You do know my record, right? She didn't answer, just extended a hand, and shadows seemed to ripple and bend around her, cloaking her movements. Kale realized with a mix of awe and mild terror that Solera wasn't just fast, she was impossible to track. Mercenaries shouted, firing blindly into the shadows, only to find themselves tangled in cables or tripping over floating debris that moved as if guided by invisible hands. Kale, following her lead, grabbed a dangling control panel and yanked it down, sending a surge of sparks and smoke across the floor. Hey, I contributed, he shouted. Solera's eyes flicked toward him, a faint curve at the corner of her mouth. Remarkable in a chaotic sort of way, she said. He grinned. I'll take that as a compliment, thanks. Then the platform beneath them groaned ominously. Oh no, that's new, that is very, very new. Solera's eyes narrowed and she leaped with impossibly fluid grace, landing beside him. Do not dwell, she said. Focus. Kale nodded, though his knees were shaking. Focus, right. I focus best when panicking artistically. The mercenary leader advanced, blaster raised, sneering. Step aside, human, or die. Kale swallowed and looked at Solera. Do we do the dramatic fight thing now, or? She gave a subtle nod, long ears flicking. Yes, dramatic but controlled. Kale grinned despite himself. Controlled, got it, like a dance. A very deadly dance with sparks and screaming. They moved together, Kale's chaotic improvisation complementing Solera's precise, predatory grace. He threw loose debris, tripped over cables deliberately, and somehow managed to knock out a drone with a misplaced boot. Solera moved like a shadow, disarming mercenaries and redirecting their own weapons against them. Kale yelled commentary at every step. Look out for that floating panel. I mean, it's definitely alive, right? No. Okay, maybe not alive. The mercenary leader froze, distracted by Kale's panicked chatter, and Solera used the opening to send him sprawling into a stack of unstable crates. The final mercenary stumbled onto a failing walkway, and Kale, for once intentionally, grabbed a loose control rod and poked him back just as the walkway gave way. Sparks and smoke filled the chamber, alarms screeching in a cacophony that made Kale's ears ring. And that, my friend, Kale shouted, is why humans survive by chaos. Solera's voice, calm amid the chaos, said, You are unpredictable and yet effective. Kale laughed, wobbling slightly. Effective chaos, I like the sound of that. With the mercenaries neutralized, Kale leaned against a railing, chest heaving, hair sticking out at impossible angles. I can't believe I made it, he admitted. I mean barely, but still, alive. Solera moved beside him, eyes glinting softly in the flickering light. You adapted, she said, and you survived, that is admirable. Kale scratched his head. Adapted, survived, sure, that's me, the human who trips into triumph. He glanced at her, noticing the subtle tilt of her head, the twitch of her long ears. You know, I never thought I'd be grateful to a vampire alien for not eating me. She gave a soft, almost imperceptible laugh. You are amusing and worthy of consideration. Kale blinked. Consideration, that's new. Usually I just get eaten or mocked by automated drones. Solera's eyes softened slightly. Perhaps there is value in observing humans who endure with humor. Kale let out a long sigh, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and pride. You know, surviving alongside you, it's taught me a few things. He gestured at the smoking, sparking remnants of the mercenary camp. Like maybe improvisation counts for more than strict tactics sometimes, and chaos can actually save your life if you use it right. Who knew? Solera's lips curved in a faint smile. You have grown. From fumbling human to chaotic survivor. Kale laughed, leaning back on a support beam. Chaotic survivor, I like the sound of that. Beats barely alive and probably cursed. He glanced